How the balloon was launched.
Как был запущен воздушный шар.
How the balloon was launched. For 3 days Dorothy heard nothing from Oz.
3 дня Дороти ничего не было слышно от Оз.
For 3 days Dorothy heard nothing from Oz. These were sad days for the little girl.
Это были печальные дни для маленькой девочки.
These were sad days for the little girl. Although her friends were all quite happy and contented.
Хотя все ее друзья были вполне счастливы и довольны.
Although her friends were all quite happy and contented. The Scarecrow told them.
Страшила сказал им.
The Scarecrow told them. There were wonderful thoughts in his head.
Что в его голове были чудесные мысли.
There were wonderful thoughts in his head. But he would not say what they were.
Но он не хотел говорить, что это такое.
But he would not say what they were. Because he knew.
Потому что знал.
Because he knew. No one could understand them but himself.
Что никто не может их понять, кроме него самого.
No one could understand them but himself. When the Tin Woodman walked about.
Когда железный дровосек ходил.
When the Tin Woodman walked about. He felt his heart rattling around in his breast.
Он чувствовал, как сердце его колотится в груди.
He felt his heart rattling around in his breast. And he told Dorothy.
И он сказал Дороти.
And he told Dorothy. He had discovered it to be a kinder and more tender heart.
Что обнаружил, что это сердце добрее и нежнее.
He had discovered it to be a kinder and more tender heart. Than the one he had owned when he was made of flesh.
Чем то, что было у него, когда он был сделан из плоти.
Than the one he had owned when he was made of flesh. The lion declared he was afraid of nothing on earth.
Лев заявил, что ничего не боится на земле.
The lion declared he was afraid of nothing on earth. And would gladly face an army.
И с радостью сразиться с армией.
And would gladly face an army. Or a dozen of the fierce Kalidas.
Или дюжиной свирепых калидов.
Or a dozen of the fierce Kalidas. Thus.
Таким образом.
Thus. Each of the little party was satisfied.
Все из маленькой компании остались довольны.
Each of the little party was satisfied. Except Dorothy.
Кроме Дороти.
Except Dorothy. Who longed more than ever to get back to Kansas.
Которой больше всего хотелось вернуться в Канзас.
Who longed more than ever to get back to Kansas. On the 4th day, to her great joy.
На 4-й день, к ее великой радости.
On the 4th day, to her great joy. Oz sent for her.
Оз послал за ней.
Oz sent for her. And when she entered the throne room.
И когда она вошла в тронный зал.
And when she entered the throne room. He greeted her pleasantly.
Он любезно поприветствовал ее.
He greeted her pleasantly. Sit down, my dear.
Садись, моя дорогая.
Sit down, my dear. I think I have found the way to get you out of this country.
Думаю, я нашел способ вывести тебя из этой страны.
I think I have found the way to get you out of this country. And back to Kansas?
Обратно в Канзас?
And back to Kansas? She asked eagerly.
Спросила она с нетерпением.
She asked eagerly. Well, I'm not sure about Kansas.
Но я не уверен насчет Канзаса.
Well, I'm not sure about Kansas. Said Oz.
Сказал Оз.
Said Oz. For I haven't the faintest notion.
Потому что я не имею ни малейшего представления.
For I haven't the faintest notion. Which way it lies.
В каком направлении он находится.
Which way it lies. But the first thing to do is to cross the desert.
Но сначала нужно пересечь пустыню.
But the first thing to do is to cross the desert. And then it should be easy to find your way home.
И тогда будет легко найти дорогу домой.
And then it should be easy to find your way home. How can I cross the desert?
Как я могу пересечь пустыню?
How can I cross the desert? She inquired.
Спросила она.
She inquired. Well, I'll tell you what I think.
Но я скажу тебе, что я думаю.
Well, I'll tell you what I think. Said the little man.
Сказал человечек.
Said the little man. You see, when I came to this country.
Понимаешь, когда я прибыл в эту страну,
You see, when I came to this country. It was in a balloon.
я был на воздушном шаре.
It was in a balloon. You also came through the air.
Ты также пришла по воздуху.
You also came through the air. Being carried by a cyclone.
Будучи унесенной циклоном.
Being carried by a cyclone. So I believe.
Поэтому я считаю,
So I believe. The best way to get across the desert.
что лучший способ пересечь пустыню
The best way to get across the desert. Will be through the air.
по воздуху.
Will be through the air. Now, it is quite beyond my powers to make a cyclone.
Теперь я совершенно не в силах создать циклон.
Now, it is quite beyond my powers to make a cyclone. But I've been thinking the matter over.
Но я все обдумал и полагаю,
But I've been thinking the matter over. And I believe I can make a balloon.
что смогу сделать воздушный шар.
And I believe I can make a balloon. How?
Как?
How? Ask Dorothy.
Спросила Дороти.
Ask Dorothy. A balloon?
Воздушный шар,
A balloon? Said Oz.
сказал Оз,
Said Oz. Is made of silk, which is coated with glue.
сделан из шелка, который покрыт клеем,
Is made of silk, which is coated with glue. To keep the gas in it.
чтобы удерживать в нем газ.
To keep the gas in it. I have plenty of silk in the palace.
У меня во дворце много шелка,
I have plenty of silk in the palace. So it will be no trouble to make the balloon.
так что сделать шар не составит труда.
So it will be no trouble to make the balloon. But in all this country there is no gas.
Но во всей этой стране нет газа,
But in all this country there is no gas. To fill the balloon with.
чтобы наполнить воздушный шар,
To fill the balloon with. To make it float.
заставить его летать.
To make it float. If it won't float.
Если он не полетит,
If it won't float. Remarked Dorothy.
заметила Дороти,
Remarked Dorothy. It will be of no use to us.
нам от него не будет никакой пользы.
It will be of no use to us. True.
Верно,
True. Answered Oz.
ответил Оз.
Answered Oz. But there is another way to make it float.
Но есть еще один способ поднять его.
But there is another way to make it float. Which is to fill it with hot air.
Наполнить его горячим воздухом.
Which is to fill it with hot air. Hot air isn't as good as gas.
Горячий воздух не так хорош, как газ,
Hot air isn't as good as gas. For if the air should get cold.
потому что, если воздух станет холодным,
For if the air should get cold. The balloon would come down in the desert.
воздушный шар упадет в пустыне,
The balloon would come down in the desert. And we should be lost.
и мы пропадем.
And we should be lost. We.
Мы,
Exclaimed the girl.
воскликнула девушка.
Exclaimed the girl. Are you going with me?
Ты отправишься со мной?
Are you going with me? Yes, of course.
Да, конечно,
Yes, of course. Replied Oz.
ответил Оз.
Replied Oz. I am tired of being such a humbug.
Я устал быть таким обманщиком.
I am tired of being such a humbug. If I should go out of this palace.
Если я выйду из этого дворца,
If I should go out of this palace. My people would soon discover I am not a wizard.
мои люди скоро поймут, что я не волшебник,
My people would soon discover I am not a wizard. And then they would be vexed with me.
и тогда они будут раздосадованы на меня,
And then they would be vexed with me. For having deceived them.
за то, что я их обманул.
For having deceived them. So I have to stay shut up.
Так что мне приходится оставаться взаперти.
So I have to stay shut up. In these rooms all day.
В этих комнатах весь день,
In these rooms all day. And it gets tiresome.
и это становится утомительным.
And it gets tiresome. I'd much rather go back to Kansas with you.
Я бы предпочел вернуться с тобой в Канзас.
I'd much rather go back to Kansas with you. And be in a circus again.
И снова оказаться в цирке.
And be in a circus again. I shall be glad to have your company.
Я буду рада твоей компании,
I shall be glad to have your company. Said Dorothy.
сказала Дороти.
Said Dorothy. Thank you.
Спасибо,
Thank you. He answered.
ответил он.
He answered. Now, if you will help me sew the silk together.
Но если ты поможешь мне с шитьем шелка,
Now, if you will help me sew the silk together. We will begin to work on our balloon.
мы начнем работать над нашим воздушным шаром.
We will begin to work on our balloon. So Dorothy took a needle and thread.
Итак, Дороти взяла иголку и нитку,
So Dorothy took a needle and thread. And as fast as Oz.
и так же быстро, как ос,
And as fast as Oz. Cut the strips of silk into proper shape.
обрезала полоски шелка в нужную форму,
Cut the strips of silk into proper shape. The girl sewed them neatly together.
девочка аккуратно шила их вместе.
The girl sewed them neatly together. First there was a strip of light green silk.
Сначала была полоска светло-зеленого шелка,
First there was a strip of light green silk. Then a strip of dark green.
потом полоска темно-зеленого,
Then a strip of dark green. And then a strip of emerald green.
потом полоска изумрудно-зеленого.
And then a strip of emerald green. For Oz had a fancy to make the balloon.
Потому что у ос была фантазия сделать воздушный шар.
For Oz had a fancy to make the balloon. In different shades of the color about them.
Разных оттенков цвета вокруг них.
In different shades of the color about them. It took 3 days to sew all the strips together.
На то, чтобы шить все полоски вместе, ушло 3 дня,
It took 3 days to sew all the strips together. But when it was finished.
но когда все было готово,
But when it was finished. They had a big bag of green silk.
у них был большой мешок зеленого шелка.
They had a big bag of green silk. More than 20 feet long.
Длиной более 20 футов.
More than 20 feet long. Then Oz painted it on the inside.
Затем ос покрасил его изнутри.
Then Oz painted it on the inside. With a coat of thin glue.
Слоем тонкого клея,
With a coat of thin glue. To make it airtight.
чтобы сделать его герметичным.
To make it airtight. After which he announced that the balloon was ready.
После чего объявил, что воздушный шар готов.
After which he announced that the balloon was ready. But we must have a basket to ride in.
Но у нас должна быть корзина, чтобы сидеть,
But we must have a basket to ride in. He said.
сказал он.
He said. So he sent the soldier with the green whiskers.
Поэтому он послал солдата с зелеными бакенбардами.
So he sent the soldier with the green whiskers. For a big clothes basket.
За большой корзиной для одежды,
For a big clothes basket. Which he fastened with many ropes.
которую он привязал множеством веревок.
Which he fastened with many ropes. To the bottom of the balloon.
Ко дну воздушного шара.
To the bottom of the balloon. When it was all ready.
Когда все было готово,
When it was all ready. Oz sent word to his people.
ос сообщил своим людям,
Oz sent word to his people. That he was going to make a visit to a great brother wizard.
что собирается навестить великого брата-волшебника,
That he was going to make a visit to a great brother wizard. Who lived in the clouds.
который жил в облаках.
Who lived in the clouds. The news spread rapidly throughout the city.
Новость быстро распространилась по городу,
The news spread rapidly throughout the city. And everyone came to see the wonderful sight.
и все пришли посмотреть на чудесное зрелище.
And everyone came to see the wonderful sight. Oz ordered the balloon carried out in front of the palace.
Ос приказал вынести воздушный шар перед дворцом.
Oz ordered the balloon carried out in front of the palace. And the people gazed upon it with much curiosity.
И люди смотрели на него с большим любопытством.
And the people gazed upon it with much curiosity. The Tin Woodman had chopped a big pile of wood.
Железный дровосек наколол большую кучу дров.
The Tin Woodman had chopped a big pile of wood. And now he made a fire of it.
И теперь развел из нее огонь.
And now he made a fire of it. And Oz held the bottom of the balloon over the fire.
А Оз держал дно воздушного шара над огнем.
And Oz held the bottom of the balloon over the fire. So that the hot air that arose from it.
Чтобы горячий воздух, выходящий из него,
So that the hot air that arose from it. Would be caught in the silken bag.
попадал в шелковый мешок.
Would be caught in the silken bag. Gradually, the balloon swelled out.
Постепенно воздушный шар надулся.
Gradually, the balloon swelled out. And rose into the air.
И поднялся в воздух.
And rose into the air. Until finally the basket just touched the ground.
Пока, наконец, корзина не коснулась земли.
Until finally the basket just touched the ground. Then Oz got into the basket.
Тогда Оз забрался в корзину.
Then Oz got into the basket. And said to all the people in a loud voice.
И громко сказал всем людям.
And said to all the people in a loud voice. I am now going away to make a visit.
Сейчас я отправляюсь в гости.
I am now going away to make a visit. While I am gone, the scarecrow will rule over you.
Пока меня не будет, вами будет править страшила.
While I am gone, the scarecrow will rule over you. I command you to obey him as you would me.
Я приказываю вам повиноваться ему, как мне.
I command you to obey him as you would me. The balloon was by this time tugging hard at the rope.
К этому времени воздушный шар уже сильно тянул за веревку.
The balloon was by this time tugging hard at the rope. That held it to the ground.
Которая удерживала его на земле.
That held it to the ground. For the air within it was hot.
Потому что воздух внутри него был горячим.
For the air within it was hot. And this made it so much lighter in weight.
И это делало его настолько легче по весу.
And this made it so much lighter in weight. Than the air without.
Чем воздух снаружи.
Than the air without. That it pulled hard to rise into the sky.
Что он с трудом поднимался в небо.
That it pulled hard to rise into the sky. Come, Dorothy.
Пойдем, Дороти.
Come, Dorothy. Cried the wizard.
Крикнул волшебник.
Cried the wizard. Hurry up, or the balloon will fly away.
Поторопись, а то шар улетит.
Hurry up, or the balloon will fly away. I can't find Toto anywhere.
Я нигде не могу найти Татошку.
I can't find Toto anywhere. Replied Dorothy.
Ответила Дороти.
Replied Dorothy. Who did not wish to leave her little dog behind.
Не желавшая оставлять свою собачку.
Who did not wish to leave her little dog behind. Toto had run into the crowd to bark at a kitten.
Татошка вбежал в толпу, чтобы облаять котенка.
Toto had run into the crowd to bark at a kitten. And Dorothy at last found him.
И Дороти наконец нашла его.
And Dorothy at last found him. She picked him up.
Она подхватила его.
She picked him up. And ran towards the balloon.
И побежала к воздушному шару.
And ran towards the balloon. She was within a few steps of it.
Она была в нескольких шагах от него.
She was within a few steps of it. And Oz was holding out his hands.
И Оз тянул руки.
And Oz was holding out his hands. To help her into the basket.
Чтобы помочь ей забраться в корзину.
To help her into the basket. When, crack.
Вдруг треск.
When, crack. Went the ropes.
Веревки порвались.
Went the ropes. And the balloon rose into the air without her.
И воздушный шар поднялся в воздух без нее.
And the balloon rose into the air without her. Come back.
Вернись.
Come back. She screamed.
Закричала она.
She screamed. I want to go too.
Я тоже хочу отправиться с тобой.
I want to go too. I can't come back, my dear.
Я не могу вернуться, моя дорогая.
I can't come back, my dear. Called Oz from the basket.
Крикнул Оз из корзины.
Called Oz from the basket. Goodbye.
До свидания.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
До свидания.
Goodbye. Shouted everyone, and all eyes were turned upward to.
Кричали все, и все взоры были обращены вверх, туда.
Shouted everyone, and all eyes were turned upward to. Where the wizard was riding in the basket.
Где волшебник плыл в корзине.
Where the wizard was riding in the basket. Rising every moment farther.
Поднимаясь с каждой минутой все дальше.
Rising every moment farther. And farther into the sky.
И дальше в небо.
And farther into the sky. And that was the last any of them ever saw of Oz.
И это был последний раз, когда кто-либо из них видел Оз.
And that was the last any of them ever saw of Oz. The wonderful wizard.
Удивительного волшебника.
The wonderful wizard. Though he may have reached Omaha safely.
Хотя он, возможно, благополучно добрался до Омахи.
Though he may have reached Omaha safely. And be there now, for all we know.
И сейчас находится там, насколько нам известно.
And be there now, for all we know. But the people remembered him lovingly.
Но люди вспоминали его с любовью.
But the people remembered him lovingly. And said to one another.
И говорили друг другу.
And said to one another. Oz was always our friend.
Оз всегда был нашим другом.
Oz was always our friend. When he was here.
Когда он был здесь.
When he was here. He built for us this beautiful emerald city.
Он построил для нас этот прекрасный изумрудный город.
He built for us this beautiful emerald city. And now he is gone.
А теперь его нет.
And now he is gone. He has left the wise scarecrow to rule over us.
Он оставил страшилу мудрого править нами.
He has left the wise scarecrow to rule over us. Still, for many days they grieved over.
Тем не менее, многие дни они горевали.
Still, for many days they grieved over. The loss of the wonderful wizard.
Об утрате удивительного волшебника.
The loss of the wonderful wizard. And would not be comforted.
И не могли утешиться.
And would not be comforted.